It is an honor to be here and to come back into Richardson, a city that has been a frequent stop for me over the years, Bill, as we've worked on projects together and maintaining this business-friendly climate. And you all understand that as well as any one in this state, the importance of maintaining this momentum that we've created in Texas over the past decade. You're home to employers of all sizes. I mean, it's just about any make and model that you can think of. Richards is home to them, from you know, big old massive globe spanning corporations to mom and pop businesses that are just getting started. And I know all of you, unless you're kind of like that Geico commercial, those fellas living under the rock. I know that unless you've been one of those two fellas, you know that we're going through a rather challenging legislative session in Austin. We've got some tough budget decisions that are looming, and we're thoughtfully having a discussion about distinguishing between wants and needs. And the fact is, and Bill and I were talking about this during the meal, that these are the same kinds of challenges that Texas families have been dealing with here for the last couple of years, and certainly those of you who run businesses, whether you're again those great big ones or maybe a little bit smaller in size, have been dealing with, you know, whether you're the CEO of one of these really big corporations or you're the head of a single household, you've been dealing with the impact of this recent global recession every day. You've been finding ways to tighten your belt. You've been finding ways of separating those wants from needs and making responsible decisions to live within your means. And we have an obligation. We have an obligation to the taxpayers to take some of those same steps in Austin, making government more efficient and streamlined, cutting spending without raising taxes. You know, simply put, taxpayers have already paid enough throughout this global recession. And every step that we take in Austin this session has to answer the questions. Are we being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars? How do we create new opportunities for Texas families and for employers, whether they're the big ones or the small ones? And throughout the last 10 years, we've done a lot to create those opportunities, and the results have been pretty overwhelming. When you look at the state of Texas, over the decade, our economy generated more jobs than any other state in the nation. We led the nation in exports for the last 9 years in a row. We're home to more Fortune 1000 companies than any other state in the nation. And we're still at it too, with Texas employers widely outpacing the other 49 states in job creation in 2010. As a matter of fact, I think the Bureau of Statistics put out a graph that was rather stunning just last week. 20% of all the jobs created in the United States were in Texas in 2010. And just last week, the Fed here in the Dallas region, they came out with their projections for job creation in 2011, and they said it's somewhere between 261,000 and 374,000 jobs that will be created in the state of Texas in the year 2011. And I think I look at those numbers as a good starting point. I look at those as job creation is what we do. I share with, you know, if I went around the room and I asked people, what's the most important thing that government does? And we'd hear a lot of different answers. Educating our children, defending and securing and keeping us safe, transportation infrastructure, health care, safety net for those that can't take care of themselves. All of those are very important things that government does, but I'll suggest to you it's not the most important thing. Most important thing that government does is to continue to keep an environment in this state so that entrepreneurs, people who are going to risk their capital, know that they will have an opportunity, the best opportunity in this country to get a return on their investment. I am a pro-business governor, and I don't make any apologies about it. Earlier this month, Site Selection Magazine announced that Texas had won the 2010 Governor's Cup. That's an award that they give for having the most new and expanded facilities in the country. And it didn't just happen by accident. I mean, people don't come to Texas just because we got, you know, great country music and good barbecue, great basketball teams. I mean, those are good things, and we're going to continue to do that, but they come here because they know that we have developed a world-class workforce. And UT Dallas has been one of the great institutions that's been engaged with us over the years to create that skilled workforce, people who are ready to compete in this global economy that we find ourselves in. And these measures have helped make Texas a beacon for employers who they're fleeing from states that are overtaxing, over-regulating, over-litigating, and they're coming to places where they have freedom. And Texas is the #1 spot on their map today. For the 4th year in a row, Texas has been the #1 state for relocations. When people leave one state to go to another, we've been the #1 location for that. And the key to attracting those jobs, and some of you have been very involved. Bill is certainly one of those. Our emerging technology fund and the enterprise fund have both been very, very important tools that we've used to be able to close the deals, to bring people, to lure them to the state of Texas. And they're very valuable resources that we have in attracting new employers to Texas and keeping new ventures from leaving the state in pursuit of that venture capital in other states. And the TEF specifically has been one of the most successful deal closing funds in the country. As a matter of fact, it's been so successful that we have my competing governors out there are creating some in New Jersey and Oklahoma, for instance, and they're taking a page from our playbook. I think one of the great compliments that you have is where people come in and steal your ideas. I told Mary Fallon in Oklahoma, I said, it's fine to come steal our ideas. Leave our football players alone. You know, in 2003, when the TEF, the Texas Enterprise Fund, was created, since then, there have been over 56,000 jobs that have been created for Texans, and we're on course to generate $14 billion in capital investment within our state, directly attributable to that enterprise fund. And these are real jobs. This is the real deal that people are picking up from other places and coming to the state of Texas, or they're expanding inside of the state of Texas. And while we're talking about the TEF, I want to point out a group of people that are here with us today, and it's really a privilege for me. It's Virtual Computing Environment, VCE, and they were the recipients of a $2.45 million Texas Enterprise Fund investment, helping close that deal that will bring hundreds of new jobs into this town. And Tim Page is sitting somewhere in the audience. Yeah, Tim's right here at the front. Stand up just a second, Tim. I want you. Where's the rest of your crew, the rest of VCE's folks? Stand up. All y'all that are hooked up with VCE, and I want to say thank you to these folks. This is one of those classic joint ventures between Cisco and EMC, and you know that's 2 Fortune 500 companies that have come together to create this cost-efficient information technology service, and they picked here. It could have been anywhere in the world, but they picked Richardson, Texas. They picked this location. And I happen to think the sky's the limit for what they're doing, and they're going to be a growing list of employees that come. And while the TIF investment certainly helped bring them here, it helped close the deal, Tim will tell you that the real reason they came here is because of the people that live in this area. It's the people that you've had the opportunity to represent for the last 24 years of your life. This is a special community. It's got a rich history, going and taking that extra step, going the extra mile to foster a job-friendly environment. We live in a highly mobile society today. These companies, they are very competitive where they pick to live. And I think it is a great salute to the leadership in this community, to the institutions of higher learning in this community, in making today's announcement possible. This is a big deal, and it's good news for Richardson, it's good news for Texas, good news for VCE. Glad you're here. Most importantly, those 434 Texans that are going to be employed by you, it's the best news for. And that's 434 people. 434 families are going to be impacted with a good paycheck. And that's what this is really all about. When you sort away all the things, it's about being able to create an environment where people can risk their capital, know they'll have a good return on their investment, that there are families that are going to be able to take care of themselves because of companies like VCE. You know, about a week ago I appeared in Dallas. We had a little press conference at a small manufacturing facility. It's a little machine shop. And Grover Norquist was with me. He's a guy who spends time talking about keeping taxes low so that job creators can have more freedom to hire people and keep the economy going across the country. And he made a really important point. And he said, prospective employers aren't interested in hearing about what you've done in the last 10 years. And it's really true. They want to know what you're going to do now and in the years to come. It's kind of like being a football coach. I got an idea. It's like, you know, well, it's real great that, you know, you've won a couple national championships, but what are you going to do this year? And what are you going to do in the future? So for us, how do we build on the success that we've had in this state for the last decade? What are the steps that we're going to take? And I truly believe that one of the most important things that we do in this state is hold the line on new taxes. And I'm sure everyone here knows. Dollars do far more good in the hands of the private sector than they do in the hands of government. And I can't think of a better way to show our commitment to the private sector job creators in the state than to make permanent that tax cut that we gave to 40,000 small businesses last legislative session. Now, I doubt that small business owners need that relief any less today than they did 2 years ago. We also need to make our courts fair. It's an issue yesterday that I laid out at length. I talked about it in the State of the State, but yesterday I laid it out in Houston, Texas. And it's the concept of loser pay. One of the reasons that we have been so successful in Texas during this last decade is that we passed one of the most sweeping tort reform bills in the history of the country, but it was really focused on on the medical community more than anywhere, and it's been a huge success and under anyone's observation. And loser pay is a I just happen to believe it makes a lot of sense. It's a relatively simple concept that if you have been sued and they lose that lawsuit against you, they get to pay your legal fees and the court cost as well. And I think it's going to really make people think about, are we just going to sue for the sake of maybe their insurance company will settle at some particular, and we'll, you know, take the money and live happily ever after. We're one of the few states in the nation that doesn't have an early dismissal option for obviously frivolous lawsuits. Somebody sues you frivolously, and we don't have an early dismissal. You've got to go through this long process and a very costly process. And we also need to make it clear that a statute doesn't create a cause of action unless the legislature specifically says it does. Everyone needs to understand what the ground rules are, and they have a right to know if their behavior is going to subject them to a lawsuit. And lastly, we need to come up with a system that gives expedited trials and limited discovery. Again, a way to keep the cost down on these lawsuits that get filed. Lawsuits between $10,000 and $100,000, a relatively small lawsuits in the grand scheme of things. Loser pays would help our business owners on the job, keep them on the job, rather than the courthouse and spending untold amounts of money defending against frivolous lawsuits. Now, I will tell you, there are some governors around the country that really hope we don't pass that. I can promise you. There are governors around the country that are like, I hope they don't pass that, because, matter of fact, I told Haley Barber 6 months ago that we were going to introduce and hopefully pass loser pays in Texas, and in his inimitable way, he said, Perry, you'll be able to put up a toll booth on the roads into Texas if you do that. Other governors understand how powerful, because we compete against each other every day. We compete against each other for the jobs that are out there. As Mr. Page will tell you, they could have been in any place in America. They could have chosen to be in California. As a matter of fact, they've got major projects out there. But they looked at where they felt they were most confident, that they could risk their capital, have a good return on their investment. And that's what smart investors are looking at all across this country. I think it's most important for Texas today to send the message of, you continue to come to the state of Texas. We're going to keep our taxes low. We're going to keep a regulatory environment that is fair and predictable. We're going to continue to have a legal system that does not allow for frivolous lawsuits. We're going to continue to fund these transparent and accountable institutions of learning so that there is a skilled workforce in place. If we do that, we will continue to win the race. If we don't, the competition will become stiff. God bless you, and thank you all for letting me come and be involved with you today.